What's up, everyone? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. Welcome to another episode of Working It Out Across Generations. I am Justin.
And I'm Dr. Lynne, you know.
Absolutely. And we got a really cool topic for you today. And I'm going to let Dr. Lynne get us into it.
Yeah, today's topic, number one, is timely. Did y'all catch Oprah? She came out of hiding and did a special on shaming, right, with regard to weight loss. That was just Monday night. So we are on time. Actually, we thought about this topic before that happened, but it was really funny that here we are today doing shaming, whether or not that is helpful to people. And Oprah did pretty much the same topic, but she just related it to weight loss. So
shout out Oprah. I don't know if my generation is doing any tuning into anything Oprah. I don't even think we're running reruns, to be completely real. But I mean, she's a boss. Like, she's got her own network, all that cool stuff. We know who she is, but I don't think we. Yeah, I mean, it's not that we don't care, but
right. She may not be tuning in. You may not be tuning in.
Maybe
but
not.
Hey,
I don't want to disrespect Oprah. That's Oprah right there.
Yeah, that's right. But I just wanted to shout out, like, wow, our minds are in sync.
Because I just know we didn't see that. None of my generation saw that on Monday.
Yeah, I saw. So anyway, see, this is why it's across generations, right? Because there is a difference. It is hilarious. Well, if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump right in. You know, shaming. I feel like shaming is a staple in our society. I feel like it's pretty much either how people choose to motivate people to do something that they think would be better for them to do, and the whole piece around weight loss, that I'll talk about that later too, but that's one of the big areas. But it really exists in a lot of places. It's just, even if you are trying to make someone feel badly about either something they did, it's so interesting to me. Someone does something that hurts someone else, and then usually it's a young person, and then the adults come and tell them how hurtful it was to make someone feel badly, and then they shame them into feeling badly about what they did. But they never really see the connection between you're actually using the technique they used that you are chastising them for. And I'm telling you, it's a staple. I feel like it's cultural. There are many cultures that use shaming as a way of really correcting, right? Or as being helpful, like seeing it as, sometimes you have to be hard on someone. Sometimes you have to make them feel badly because they're not really viewing themselves from the same lens that you are. And I get it, that it's easier for us to see what's wrong with other people. Right? We can do that in a minute. But seeing what's wrong with ourselves, I think, isn't always as easy. Or if we do see it, it feels we're embarrassed, or we don't really want to take that on. So we go and look at someone else and see their faults. But I know that shaming has existed for a really long time, but I do also know that it gets used in a lot of circles, in a lot of spaces. And on top of that, it gets affirmed, validated, right? That people do feel like this is helpful, that this is the way that you really need to do things, so that the person will get the message and make the changes.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with a lot of what you just said. I think as far as shame, the feeling, the emotion, the bodily response to having not shown up, in a way that I guess is aligned with, character, values of yours, things of that nature. I think that it is an important thing. I think that it's an important emotion. And I think that because of that, it shows the humanity in all of us, right? That there are times where we're not going to show up fully the way that we, intend to, that we usually do, right? Like there are times where we completely can, be in one area and then come out of left field, right? That's just life and how life can throw us for a loop sometimes. And I think that when getting to this particular level, because it is a deep level, even though there's deeper and then there's more surface level, within this big term of shame, I think that when we're talking about this level, it is a nice indicator of, balance of reflection, but also being able to, live in those feelings in a way, because I do think that it is a step before, a step above, closer to the surface than things of depression, than things of anxiety, which, definitely are factors, right? However, I think that for me, I have found a nice balance when I'm in that really just the shame place of, okay, I'm a human being, this happened, right? And I'm still energy wise able to approach it from a setting goals conversation and state of orientation for the future. However, too much of anything, as we've said, is unhealthy and can be unhealthy. And I'll definitely share more when we get into our generational takes, which I'll definitely toss right back to you. But I think that, when we talk about the actual emotion that can come up, when we talk about, the process of dealing with it, I do think it is a necessary thing that people do need to feel, just to remind themselves of just how human they are. However, when we go about, inflicting that on other people and saying you should do this or should feel this or should, really just getting into how it comes out, how it gets expressed in how we coexist, that's where I think that, the discussion around lines being drawn needs to be had, or at least started. I definitely think people have their own reasons, their own motivators, right? But I think it is a valuable conversation because, we've seen just how much shame can, really do some damage.
Right. So. And we've seen people who respond actually well to shame too.
Absolutely.
That's why we're really talking about it, because for us, it's not, I mean, I have my own opinions on it and you'll hear that today, but for us, it's not a black and white thing. Like, absolutely not. Nobody should use it. I personally don't respond well to shame. I've had it throughout my whole life. But I do agree with you. I think that we are given a range of emotions. There's well over 300 emotions, right? And we probably tap into maybe 6 or 7. Like, we really don't feel everything. There is use for feeling ashamed of something that you have done, right? It doesn't mean that you have to feel ashamed about every time you make a mistake. That's not what I'm saying. And I feel like that is the place that a lot of people go to when they are shamed. My view, I just feel like that's a place that a lot of people go to. And then if shaming is a constant method that people use, then you go to shame even without them shaming you. And it becomes this thing where every time you do something wrong, you feel ashamed. And then to me, that really does not honor the emotion. When you do something that you should be ashamed of, then you feel the shame and you sit in that and move through it, work through it and work it out. Make sure that you are hopefully able to rectify the situation or whatever. But you shouldn't feel shame about every single thing. Like, every emotion has its place in time. And the goal would be, and not in my view, especially in the conflict resolution world, that we get acquainted with a wide range of feelings in the appropriate time for those feelings to come up, and that we learn how to sit with them and learn from them. If I'm ashamed of something, then can I look at that, right? And learn why or what happened in that instance. I think that that's valuable. Now, for me growing up, I said, I had a tremendous amount of shame. I guess why I also, besides Oprah being in my generation, I guess why I also resonated with it is because she did shaming with regard to weight loss. And that's been an issue that I have been challenged by since I was 8 years old. to be honest. And I don't think there's anybody that used any other method than shaming with me when it came to that, and other people. But I'll speak about myself, right? I don't remember anybody using encouraging that you can do this, or even to help me think about why I was even overeating or whatever the situation was. So I grew up with a tremendous amount of shaming, and so I know for a fact that you can just feel shame regardless. You could, when you shaming is used consistently with you, you can feel like, or I certainly felt like, almost everything I did was wrong. Let's think about the weight, right? When you think about things like weight, it affects what you wear, how you feel about what you wear, how you look, how you feel about all of it, right? How wide is my face, how wide is my waist, like all of those things. So you can be ashamed just getting dressed. You could feel shame just walking out the door, right? You could feel shame running into an ex, or well, if you gain weight, I mean, all of those things that people don't really think about.
Yeah.
And it definitely happened to me. I know for people, maybe people that I know that have been to prison, right? And the shame, people shaming them. Yeah, okay, I agree. That's not something, if you did do something that landed you in prison, that's not something you want to feel proud of, unless it was saving someone's life for whatever reason and you still went to prison. But for the most part, it's not something you want to feel proud of. So I understand the shame, but to carry, because you continue to be shamed or shame yourself, you carry that, right? And so for me, I'm not good with it, but I have over the years come across people that are good with it, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then for yourself out there, think about it. Is it something that you use? Is it something that has been used on you? Because we want to hear from you as well. But in my generation, and I'm going to say culturally, and I've found in the African American community that shame is pulled out of the toolbox quite a bit. And there are people, I grew up in the generation of adults who felt like that was the appropriate method, and everybody kind of used it across the board. I can remember I had a kidney infection, and what they found out was that I didn't drink any water. Like the entire summer, I hadn't had any water. I didn't drink any water. And I remember running into this adult, and I know I wasn't in middle school, because I remember running into this adult on the way to school, and I know which way my elementary school was, and that was the way I was headed. So I was in elementary school, and she came up to me and said, "Shame on you for not drinking any water and getting sick like that." I was like, "Whoa, oh, it's my fault. I have a mother. She didn't make me drink water, right? She didn't tell me to drink water. She didn't put water in front." It was just an amazing thing to me, but I was so used to it. But at least I was able to ask myself the questions like, is this something I should really be ashamed of? Because I hadn't been. I was sick. Why should I be ashamed about getting sick? But it made me think, is this my fault? And if it is, should I feel ashamed about not having drank water, right, this whole summer? So it's tricky for me. But as I said, I grew up with adults who used that, pulled that out all of the time, and they could often get a chorus of other adults to agree with them and shame you in the process as well. So I'm not sure. I hope I never use shame with y'all, but when it's cultural, when it's habitual, even when you say you don't want to use it, it may have pulled it out the pocket because you may have felt in the moment that this is something that's going to work in this situation. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that. I think generationally speaking, I really appreciate the point that you had brought up just about carrying, because I think that every generation is carrying a lot, and has had a lot to carry just off of the everyday coexisting and what that looks like for people. And so when we talk about my generation, I think that it has definitely become one of the like top 3 motivators for stepping out of your comfort zone, for things like taking care of your physical health, however that looks like, right? And I do think, again, we'll get into this a little bit, but I do think in some areas, like, we've gone about, as I talked about, the process of, setting those goals after, right? Not just sitting in it, not just living in it. I think in the sense of taking more initiative over action, I think that we definitely have taken, the reins on that. As far as, generations of mine, I'm Gen Z, right? Like, I'm 22, 23.
I can't keep up.
I don't even know. I don't. I just know my age. I don't really, that's all I care about. But I think that one of the ways that we've done that is by addressing some of these things, right? Like, we're very much the confrontational generation, right?
Is that what you call yourselves?
Yeah, we are very confrontational. We want things out in the open just to at least know what we're working with. We will burn something down before we even know what we're burning down, or have plans to rebuild, right? So if it feels not right, if it doesn't feel right for us. And so I think that with that comes shame simply that people are holding. And I think that comes with, equally as people are, taking that initiative, there are still people that, struggle with having those skills to do so, struggle with the encouragement to do so, right? Like, and so at the end of the day, right, when we talk about mental health and things of that nature, like, I know that, personally for me, like, shame was a big part of like my journey of just how to manage it, of how to deal with the emotion, because I was carrying a lot from my experiences. And there were times where it was just like, bro, this is too much. Like, what, like I'm done. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be social. I don't want to make friends. Like, I don't want to have my routine, right? Like, it really can take you there if you live there. And I think that we have lost so many people, and this is across generations, but we've lost so many people due to shaming being, again, a part of that top 3, whereas like encouragement is like a top 5, top 10 tool that people are using, and it lands on like 8 or 7 or 6, when it comes to at least encouraging other people, let alone how we encourage ourselves, right? Might be a little higher when it comes to, how we talk to ourselves, because, I think people naturally want to make sure they take care of themselves before they show up for other people, right? I think that's a natural human thing. However, when we talk about how we show up, and how we get people to those motivated places to do these things for themselves, right? I think that, time and place, like you said, that's prime, right? So something of, a classroom mistake, maybe, yeah, maybe not, but anything in which I've stepped out of my values, or, stepped out of my character, especially with people I love, or anything of that nature, then yeah, I'm probably going to go to this place with it, for the simple sake of setting those goals for how to deal with it ahead of time, to make sure that outcome is just way less likely. I think we as a generation have taken more initiative on making sure that that's something that we do with it.
Well, do people in your generation, you think, respond well to shame as a motivator to do something good?
I think so. And I think another way that it comes up for us too is in comedy. Like, we've already had a comedy episode, but I think comedians of my generation and of others, even just like millennials and things of that nature, right? Like, they you'll see them in like different countries or different states or whatever, and they're going to those places of like, this is what's going on, like, here, right here, and I'm just a visitor, like, on stage making you guys laugh, right? And I think that in one of those ways, again, right, like, feeling the irony of having added to possibly a problem, even though we're all, trying to be better and trying to do better. I think when you realize that the humanity factor, right, of that, we're not always going to show up aligned with our values. We're not always going to show up and walk the talk that we're talking all of the time. I think that does make people want to say, okay, well, this is definitely like a conversation that needs to be had. It's definitely a problem. And I'm glad that we could enter that conversation with a laugh, but let's get serious about, really like next steps. So I think we have very interesting ways of using it when it comes to, again, the process of that goal setting after sitting in the feelings for quite some time. I think we have an interesting process, but it shows up in different ways, it works in different ways, and it lands in different ways. And so
because that whole piece about comedy, I was just thinking about that. Like Robin Harris, some of y'all may not know Robin Harris. We talking about Generation. Okay. Do the Right Thing. Y'all know that movie?
Okay, yeah. That's money. That's money.
One of the guys sitting in the neighborhood,
that's the
right?
Reason that's the reason I got Cement Fours in my life. That's a great movie.
Robin Harris and then Bernie Mac. Also, they really made a living on shaming people, right? And Robin Harris would tell you, don't come to my show and sit in the front row and you got someone that I'm just gonna pick on you, right? And I shouldn't say unfortunately, but I'm gonna say that as much as I don't like shaming, there were times when I laughed at that kind of comedy, right? I laughed at that. And so what does that say about shaming? I don't think it's easy I think it's easy to say that how it hurts, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I also don't think it's easy to say it doesn't work with anybody, right? And so we should just never do it. And that's the whole conflict, the nature of the conflict of shaming, right? Is that which is it? Is it helpful or is it hurtful, right? And why? What are the reasons behind that? I think we're going to talk about the reasons that people use shaming.
Yeah.
Because there may be people who are like me who are like, hey, no, it has no place. But the reason it's still here is because there are people that find it helpful. And we want to talk to you about some of the ways in which people feel like shaming can be helpful, useful, why they even use it. So the first one is cultural norms. And I started to talk about, I felt like for the African-American community, oh my God, especially moms. Hey, I may be stepping on some toes. I'm a Black mom too. I'm an African-American mom too. So it was just the rule of the day. But I think one of the best things that really helped me understand that it's like not just my culture, right? That there's other cultures as I was doing a workshop, and we were doing the workshop around respect, right? How we talk to each other was in a school. And we were talking about the fact that people say things to people that are mean, unkind, and make people feel badly and feel ashamed. And one of the things as it came up was weight. And I can remember one of the participants saying, you Americans, in my culture, we are direct and honest. You're fat. That's what I'm going to say to you. You're fat. And I'm not going to lie to you and call it plump or plus size or whatever. And, it was just like, whoa, what did she just say? And stood behind it. Like, you're not talking me off of this. This is the thing that drives me insane about you Americans. Is that you just want to go tiptoe around and like, in my culture, no, we're going to tell you the truth. So I thought, wow, that's so interesting. And really, it's not just one culture. It's not just two. Think about your own culture. Think about other cultures where it really is a part of just how you speak to people. And the expectation is that you'll respond, first of all, you won't see it as hurtful. You'll see it as honest, and that you'll respond to that.
Yeah. Very interesting when we talk about intersecting cultures and what that looks like. And I mean, I don't have too much for this one. This was her note, but definitely a valid one, like for sure, in the sense of just the directness and what everyday conversation looks like and diction and things of that nature, right? So I think these are things to consider for sure. Next, it's used as a sign of love, right? People do at the end of the day, your close friends, your best friends, their family, we do get on each other, and laugh about certain things that we know someone else is, embarrassed about or something like that. And now again, I think time and place, right? But I think time is more of the essence here, in the sense of, just you want to make sure that person, feels good about whatever happened, or is just in a better place about whatever happened, right? I just don't think like maybe like the next day after something like embarrassing, like a drunk story or whatever it is, right? That like you go just like cutting into them and digging into them for it, on this level, right? But however, maybe later on in life, maybe later on, 2 weeks down the line, a few weeks down the line, a couple years down the line, right? It can become something you laugh at, and something that, you could say, deeper, like from the outside looking in, like, look, bro, like, yeah, that was funny, but I mean, I'm glad that's not happening now. Like clearly you've grown if that's not something that, we've seen from you and I don't even know how long, right? So just things of that nature when it comes to time and place, as a sign of love, right? I think is important, and just how you do it is important too. How you express that as well.
Yeah, for this one too, I have a friend, and he had gained a lot of weight, and we were talking actually about this, about shaming, as whether or not that was a motivator. And he said, I disagree with you, Lynn. He said, I walk past my mirror all the time, never really saw the weight gain. And he said, and my brother came to me in love to say, because I love you, I got to tell you how you look. And he said, I appreciated that, because everybody else was lying to me or didn't tell me, right? Or maybe they think that that's a sign of love. It's like, well, I'm not going to say it because it'll hurt his feelings, right? But he said, I actually took what my brother said as a sign of love. And I've heard people say this, look, I love you. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I love you, I have to be honest with you about this. And then the shaming comes. So there are people who actually not only use it, but there are people who respond well to it and do see it as, they told me that because they love me.
Yeah. Shout out those kinds of friends. I'm not going to lie. We all need a couple of those within whatever area you feel you might need that checking. And then next, it was used on them and it worked. Now, this is where we talk about where it could be useful, helpful, right? I think things of, taking care of physical health, right? We brought that up earlier, right? I know that that's something that has definitely, helped people get that extra rep in, help them show up that extra day, right? Help them do more than what they already signed up for and oriented themselves to doing, right? As a way of stretching their own limits, not necessarily testing them, because I think we all know we're stronger than we know, we're smarter than we know. It's really just about getting the experiences to flush it out and bring it out of us, and being around the people that will, flush it out of us. And so I think that, in prime times like that, where, that friend, right, really was just putting it out there, right? But it was on that person to receive it, to feel whatever came up, but then end up being okay with it, but also to say, all right, well, what can I do with it? What can I do about it? How can I start, right? Really, it's just about starting. Of course, it's a process to keep going, but I think when it comes to starting, it definitely can be something that's very valuable when it comes to something like that, right? Anything that I think, aligns for you, that's on that same level of value of personal development, of growth, right? Of self-care, of feeding you, then kudos to you in that area too. I think that's one that I've seen in my life where people have really used their stuff to put that extra weight on the bar and push themselves, and that's only going to have a positive outcome.
Yeah, I think this one is interesting because as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, right? So I actually think, wow, this is not just straight up black and white for me. I think it depends on where the person is. So like it was used on them, so it worked. I see that all the time in so many things, not just shaming, right? It worked on me, so I'm going to use it on someone else.
Right. Right.
And that could be you, right? Mm-hmm. But not that someone else. I'll tell you, I just remembered, right, going to the gym, and my trainer was just like, and by the way, how many days a week did you show up this? And you didn't show up. And I'm like, well, what you trying to shame me? And it didn't shame me. It just made me laugh. But then it also made me think, right, okay, I had said I wanted to do more days and I didn't. And so that technique actually made me think rather than feel badly about myself. But that's because I was in a place where I refused to feel bad about it, not that it didn't have an effect on me. So yeah, it may have worked on you and that's why you're using it, but you want to make sure that that's someone who it can work on. And I guess you got to use it to test that out. But once you get the information that it's not useful or it is useful, then you'll make your decisions from there. But again, there are reasons why people do use it, right? And if we're existing in a world together, then we've got to recognize that for some people, it is a motivator or it is helpful or it doesn't bother them. But for other people, there are ways that shame can hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I just think this world is way too complex for us to possibly think in anything that there's a one size fits all approach.
And yet we do in so many things.
And everything. We assume that, everyone is in the same place at the same time, right? And I think that's, just because we're consuming a lot of the same stuff every day, we're taking in a lot of the same stuff, and it might even be landing in a lot of similar ways and situations. That's still not enough to sit here and say that it works for everyone in this capacity and at this time, right? Or in this field. And so when we talk about some of the ways that, shame can hurt, right? It can cause self-hate. It can cause some real taking of your own evaluation, right? Because we all should evaluate ourselves and continue to do that. But it really is taking it a step far, right? In the sense of, unless you're like just this evil person, right? Which I don't think a lot of us are, right? Then I don't think that a lot of people need to feel self-hate. Again, when we talk about identifying the levels to these things, right? Like there really are levels to emotions, and that's why there's so many of them, and that's why that so many of them fit within an umbrella of an emotion, right? And it's really about identifying what means what, why it means so much, when it means so much, when these things transpired, right? Doing all of that, like question and asking yourself, right? Is really important for really deciphering just what you're feeling and just where you need to be, like the levels that you need to be at. So yes, did I do something that I'm maybe not proud of? Okay. Even that at times with certain situations can be less than shame or less aligned with shame. That could be more disappointment. That could be more anxiety producing. That could be anything else that for that person it lands as. And so I think when we talk about, right, as we're saying, one size fits all, like that just can't be in such a complex, forever changing world. And so the reality is there are people that are dealing with the self-hate. There are people who are doing something about the self-hate that's not productive, that's not helpful to themselves or the people around them. And I think that just needs to be forever open in the conversation, as this problem has been open in the conversation for generations that have already been here and possibly to come if we really don't start getting into, the chemical makeup of some of these things that, can come up in us.
Yeah, I think that it definitely can cause self-hate for people. It is, especially if you if everyone around you uses that, and in particular for whatever it is this thing is, like if it's the same thing and everybody uses shaming, right, then it really does make you think about, well, am I a good person? Am I, even when what they're shaming you about has nothing to do with you as a person of whole, right? The whole person, and maybe one thing that may need correcting or may need you to do some real thinking about, but it can make you feel like, wow, everybody hates me, so I'm not worthy, and I'm going to join the group and hate me as well. And they may not hate you, they just really feel like they're helping you using it, but you all need to know that you could be really hurting someone and causing them to hate themselves.
Absolutely.
It's causes public embarrassment. I've seen this. If this is a technique that you're going to use, please don't do it publicly. It is so difficult to stand in shame and being shamed when other people are around. If you are doing it in love, as you're doing it a motivator, then try to do it in private. Pull them aside. What's the purpose? And see, that's kind of it for me on this one. What's the purpose of the public shaming? Right? Maybe if everybody's getting shamed, okay, then all right, you're not going to spare one. But if there's one person you're using shaming on, especially today where people are happy to jump on the bandwagon of bringing somebody down, of hating on somebody.
And the internet is very easy to do that.
Yes.
It doesn't take much. It just takes that one post.
That's right.
In one connotation for someone to, on some algorithm stuff,
right,
end up landing on that and being able to just say, yes, absolutely, I agree. You know, these are people sometimes that you don't even know, right? A lot of times it's people you don't even know.
Right, because they ask other people to join in. Right. You know, this person did this, that, and the other, crazy right?
Stuff. My generation loves that, I'll say that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So therefore, if you're doing it in public, then know that you could be causing a tremendous amount of pain simply because you're doing it in front of other people who will be happy to jump on the bandwagon, right? Unless you got a big, strong fan base, right? You know, Beehive, right? That's Beyonce's crew, I think, right? Who will come for you if you come for her,
that's
right?
The Swifties. I don't know about the Beehive.
Oh, the Beehive does. Yeah. You didn't read about the country song? Anyway, yeah, they came for folks who came for her. But like I said, unless you got that, right, you're going to find that if you're publicly shaming someone, that other people are more than happy to go in on it with you. And that definitely hurts and can cause harm.
Yeah.
And this one, you're taking someone's choice away when you shame them, right? Because I've found that people who don't respond well to shame, like meaning that it's hurtful, it sends them into other places, what they sometimes learn to do is to do what you are shaming them for, right? Do something about what you're shaming them for, simply for you, simply because it either gets you off their back, or they know it's something that will make you, or they're hoping it's something that will make you like them more, or feel proud of them more, or want to be around them more, or speak positively about them more to other people. But they're not doing it because they want to do it or because they think they should do it. They're doing it for you, which means you're taking the choice of being able to do what they want to do with their lives, whatever decisions that they want to make with their lives. You're taking that away because now all they're doing is making sure that you're happy with who they are or what they're doing in this area. They're not really thinking about it, focusing on it for themselves in order to be able to say, to make that decision. Like, you know what? I really want to do something about this, or I should do something, or I don't care what people think. I'm going to conduct myself in this way. And I've seen that happen. I've done it. Look, I've done stuff that people have shamed me for, growing up, because I just don't want to hear their mouths anymore. I do want them to be proud of me. And so even if I haven't thought about whether or not it's something I want to do something about, or if I want to do it in that way, I'll do it. I've done it just to go, please, let me get this person off my back, or get them to really look at me differently, especially when it's family, a parent, even a sibling. Yeah. So I don't know about you on this one.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think just from talking about the emotion place, I think shame for me is one of those like perfect embodiments of just like the yin and yang of life, right? I think it's very much one of those, not that the process of weeding through a situation and finding the right emotion to label it is not a process, but I think that it's not a checking process in itself. But I think shame is one of those things where you could like really check yourself, really check like how you're moving, check how you're showing up, and things of that nature. And so when we talk about, right, like certain situations like that where you're like letting things build, right, you're like letting certain actions, you know, just be, I guess, considered normal or okay, right? That deep down inside are not okay for you or not whatever, right? Yes, there's probably a time where you got to weed through your thoughts and you got to have that for yourself. But right, that releasing point is important, because I know there's so many people who have simply held on to shame for things that they didn't say, for things that they didn't check, for things that for things they allowed to go on for too long.
Right.
Right. So I appreciate that point, just from a what if I need to get this out? You taking that away from me only adds layers to the already possibly layered conflict that we have to weed through before we can even get to the nucleus. Right. And so I think that people need their choices. Yes. People need their choices, and people need their freedom to make their choices, because there's too many people that we're losing just by holding on to things that, if it got addressed, if that was encouraged, the addressing of it, that having a space like this to disagree even at times, right? But to know it's out, right? And to still shake hands or hug after, or at least head nod of a sign of respect, right? Something, then I think that, we'd be in better shape. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So what do you think? We'd love to hear your thoughts, or write them in, comment, whatever, because this one, I think that there may be some kind of polarization where people are just absolute, nope, never should be used, and then other folks are, hey, it's a great tool, and people need to stop being so sensitive. I've heard that. They need to be able to toughen up and be able to hear the truth about themselves. And I often think about, but whose truth is it? Right? It's often the other person's truth, not necessarily yours, or it's the other person putting their values rather on you.
Projection. Yeah.
Right.
People do project like a word I don't know if I can use on this yet, but we'll talk about that for the next episode.
It's true. People really can project their stuff onto you.
Absolutely.
And decide how they want you to act and move and think and look. And it isn't necessarily your truth or the truth. It's simply theirs. And that goes back to that piece about you're taking someone's choice away, to really be able to think about it and decide whether or not that's something that they want to change or want to talk about, want to think about. I can remember my mom using shame in like an interrogation type of way, which was really impossible to think about. Just like, why'd you do it? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I mean, literally coming at me like, I don't know why. I can't even know why in the moment, because I'm feeling so badly, Like, you're making me feel so bad about what I did. I'm not even thinking why. And only thing I'm really thinking is I just got to make sure I don't ever do this again, because I don't want you doing this to me again, which again goes back to taking that choice away from myself, to rather than just her ask the question, why do you think you did that? Right? That's very different from what I just described, because it allows my thoughts and my feelings in, and it gives me a chance to reflect for myself. So that's an interesting one. Do you use shame? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we are glad that you joined us today, or that you're watching the replay, whatever it is that you're doing. We're happy that you're tuning in, and we're giving you content to really think about, because if you recognize, right, a lot of the things we don't put it in the context of that's a conflict, but we are showing you how some of the everyday ordinary things are causing conflict. And that's what life is about. Conflict is a natural part of life. So join us every week for talking about all the different ways that we can work through conflict across the generations, and make sure that you
watch us live, comment. We're on e360.tv.com, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. We got a YouTube, Working It Out Across Generations, as well as Facebook, Working It Out TV show. We really appreciate anyone who has ever tuned in, anyone who's ever left a comment, anyone who's ever shared. Small is all, it all adds up. So we really do appreciate every ounce of support that we get. This has been another great episode. I mean, this is probably stuff that I'm still going to be thinking about, even after this, and still making sure I think about it even after that, right? Just because, as I said, that humanity factor, making sure we're checking in with ourselves, really to say, am I walking that talk? Am I aligning, in every fashion? And there are times where we do have to go there and say, that was way out of left field, and let's get back on track, right? I think that's something that we always, or not always, often as a society leave out of the equation, right? But the getting back on track is encouraged. It's not just encouraged in the opening of the conversation. For us, we encourage that throughout, right? If you got to do one, you got to be able to do the other. So as you know, how we wrap this up. Conflict is here to teach you something about yourself. Go out there and find out what it is. This is another episode of Working It Out Across Generations. I'm Justin.
I'm Dr. Lynne. It's season 2. We're going to have a guest on next week, and we want you to tune in because it's going to be great.
Yep. Can't wait. We'll see you next week, Wednesday at 1. Everyone have a good day.